All right, hi. Hi. So we're going to talk some about modifications for your yoga practice. I know so many people feel like they can't do yoga because they're too flexible, or they feel too big, or they feel like they aren't strong enough. There are so many things that you are able to do in a yoga practice if you just have the right modifications. I always say that if you can breathe, you can do yoga. So, well done you. You've succeeded already without even trying. So for the asana practice, there are lots of common modifications. I'm going to go through a few things. We're going to talk a little bit about wrists, because that's a common discomfort. Talk a little bit about shoulders, about knees and ankles. But if there are any questions that you have, feel free to email me. And you can use the contact information on our website or email info@yoga-momma.com. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is start working with wrists. A common pose that we often get into where the discomfort can begin is tabletop pose. So go ahead and just get into traditional tabletop. This is Kathy, by the way, my pal. Tabletop pose is a lot of flexion for the wrists, and some people with carpal tunnel or just general inflammation of the wrists or fingers can't do this pose. Some days this is actually quite hard for me when I have some inflammation in my joints. So this is the traditional pose. You want to make sure your fingers are all pushing down. Maybe you can do that a little while and then your wrists get tired and you want something different. Another option for table only is to bring your hands into fists, which loads the joints and keeps them straight. What's beneficial about doing this is that you actually are loading the joint and building strength and density in those bones because they're loaded appropriately. There's no flexion or extension on the wrist joints. I would say don't do any other posture with this. You don't want this to be too much of a load-bearing pose, but fists can be a nice alternative to tabletop. So she can still do a little cat-cow. You can show him you can do a little cat-cow movement with fists, but maybe just temporarily. It's not something you want to spend a lot of time on. Okay, that's great. So the other option is to actually take the blocks and make kind of a table and turn your hands slightly out. So she's going to come up, and what that also does is creates a little bit more lift. The fingers are able to curl around. She has a little bit less tension, right? A little less flexion because the wrists are able to turn around, turn slightly to the side and curl. But it doesn't modify her postures. Blocks are still under the shoulder. She still has a lot of freedom. Can you do a little cat-cow? You get movement and mobility. You probably could even go into down dog. I have seen some students do down dog using the blocks in this way if that feels okay, which we'll demonstrate in a moment. The other option, go ahead and set those blocks aside, Kath, is to roll your mat up, which I see lots of students trying. This is a variable degree of success as well, so that your fingers kind of curl over. It just creates a little bit more cushioning and bounce underneath your joint, and it can be beneficial for a lot of people. It really is just a trial and error to see which one feels good. So yeah, you've still got some movement, but the fingers maybe aren't as tense, not creating as much tension for carpal tunnel sufferers. This could be a really nice option. And then go ahead and let that go. We're going to show two different versions of being on your forearms. Another option is to tabletop and forearms. So this first pose, this first option, has the forearms down and the hands are pretty much straight forward from her forearms. That creates a really stable surface for her to operate from. And the other option is to bring palms together. You can either clasp them or just bring them together, whatever feels most intuitive. From this position, it's really nice because you can very easily transition, put your forearms in the comfortable position for you, and you can transition into plank pose. So you'll notice, and she has the same stability, building strength in the upper body, core is working and aligned, and then if this is too strong for you, you can drop the knees down. You're still squeezing the inner thighs together, lifting the pelvic floor and breathing, right? And then go ahead, right? You're still breathing. And then go ahead and come to sitting on your knees. So I want to show a couple different options for ankles. A lot of people sprain an ankle or they roll an ankle, and this kind of sitting on the knees can be a little bit intense. So if you have extra padding, you notice I just took a seat on a blanket back here, you can bring a little extra padding for discomfort in your knees, but you can also roll up your blanket just a little bit to create a little bit of surface so that the ankles are in a little less extension. So if you come onto hands kneeling and you let your ankle joint rest on that roll, you'll notice that her toes can drop down a little bit. It's sort of like a little massage and a cushion for your ankle joint, a little more freedom. Okay, so that's a nice option as well. So you can use towels at home. any kind of firm blanket. These are those nice kind of wool acrylic hybrid blankets. Okay, so I think that's it. So let's show forearm down dog. Yeah, so go ahead and drop your forearms. I'm going to take this blanket out of the way once you do that. Okay. So drop the, oh yeah, so forearm down. Yes, we want to do down puppy. Thank you. So this is something that we call down puppy. In yoga, this is also called anahatasana pose. This is a heart-opening pose. What's nice about this pose as an alternative to down dog is it is less pressure on the arms. It's a little less work for the body for those of you who struggle with down dog. But the primary intent is still activation and length through the spine from fingertips to the tailbone. So she's still working, pressing those hands into the earth. Hips are above the knees, and she still has some of that same delicious energy that's found in down dog. Now, if you want to get some of the leg extension, she can extend her left foot back and tuck her toes for a moment and breathe. And then she can do the opposite leg. You'll still get some of the delicious benefit while having the support of the knee on the ground. This can be a really nice starting point if you're beginning yoga, is this down puppy version. And then now we'll drop the elbows down and do a forearm down dog, right? So elbows down, forearm down dog. Yeah, so this is also called dolphin pose in many traditions. This is simply the same as down dog, but your forearms are down. For those of us who are really strong up here, this actually feels really great. This is a nice way to open the heart. You'll notice that her ears are being framed by her forearms. This is an ideal for people with really inflamed shoulders or shoulder issues, which we're going to touch on in just a second. So now I'm going to have Kathy find her way, in whatever way is comfortable, to a hanging forward fold at the front of the mat. Actually, I'm going to have you come to standing at the front of the mat. Okay, so Kathy is really flexible. I am less flexible than Kathy. Those of us who are really long, or if you're a runner, a lot of times your body can feel really tight. So go ahead and get out of the way. I'm going to actually demonstrate this one. So a lot of times when in the morning, I've been doing yoga for over 20 years. In the morning when I've been skiing, I cannot touch my toes. This will be as far as I can go. So this is where our friend, the blocks, come in. And I use the blocks for every practice that I do, but also every practice that I teach. There's a mythology that blocks are bad. They can create length. They can bring the floor to you and create stability. I think they're fabulous. So I think they're worth an investment. If you cannot afford blocks, again, you could use a chair or anything that's going to bring stability and the earth closer to you. So when we go into a hanging forward fold, a lot of times we start with that dynamic movement. You'll notice immediately that I just automatically start to soften my knees. I have very tight hamstrings, and so I want to soften my knees enough, and I'm going to use the blocks. What this does, it allows me to refine the posture, to move my hips where I want them. I actually could probably bring my blocks down a little bit further, and I've got a lot of stretch. So mostly my stretch is occurring here across the backs of my legs. I'm going to soften my knees even further to let my belly come down. Now I really feel that stretch in my back. So this can be the way that you do what's called Uttanasana, or hanging forward fold. The only reason I did that is because when Kathy comes into hanging, go ahead and show us hanging forward fold, she is really flexible. So she can bend right in, and we couldn't fake inflexibility with her at all. So go ahead and come all the way up. Yeah, so great. So we're going to work a little bit with some of the shoulders. I might have you turn, Kath, just to demonstrate. No, the other direction. Or yeah, maybe that way. I don't know. We'll see when it's time. So a lot of times people will say, bring your arms up in any posture, a high lunge, a warrior, the arms will be up high. So go ahead and demonstrate that. So the arms are vertical. Great. So we want to make sure that the shoulders are away from the ears and that they're kind of relaxed, even that there's the sweetness and the integrity in every posture that you choose. But some of you will not like this. One of your shoulders might be off. Nice option to this is taking cactus arms, goalpost arms, right? So the elbows are straight across from each other. The shoulders are still down in their joints, but the heart is bright. So you don't want your shoulders to be forward unless that feels really good. You're trying to drop these shoulder blades down. And the other thing is you don't want the pterodactyl arms, the like, you have to wiggle, but just like this. Go ahead and turn towards the camera so we can demonstrate. Yeah. So we don't want pterodactyl arms. We want like cactus, strong energy. So you'll notice that when her fingers radiate, all of the muscular tissue that comes out to her fingertips are engaged. That's what you want. Even if you're not extending, you still want energy. And then another option is to bring hands to hips and anchor. Now I recommend that if you cannot lift one of your arms up at all in any of these poses, oh, actually hands to shoulders is a good one too. Those are nice. That's a nice alternative as well. That you try to find balance and symmetry on both sides of the body. So even if one arm's like this and the other one's not, you would rather choose both arms to be grounded. So then hands to hips is another nice option. Okay. So you also get recommendations on clasping the hands behind the back. Now again, Kathy has nice open shoulders, very flexible shoulder joints. So it's very easy for her to clasp her hands behind her back. Can you turn your back towards the screen? So you'll notice that it's very comfortable for her. Can you bring your hands even closer together? Yeah, so she's got lots of flexibility. I cannot do this. I've been doing yoga for a long time. I cannot do that with my hands. The most that my hands get are like that. So there are a lot of variations. So what we're going to do is demonstrate if you cannot clasp, a first option is to bring your tops, your hands, yeah, we'll just do forearms, sure. So forearms to low back. Go ahead and turn further. So forearms to low back. But when you choose this pose, make sure the belly doesn't punch forward. You're still nice and tall and the belly's pulled in towards those hands. You can bring the backs of the hands to the sacrum. So just kind of stacked on top of each other like that. Just a little bit lower though. Yeah. So you can bring that and you still get nice shoulder opening across the front. And then finally, another option may be worth an investment, or you can just grab a belt. I use a belt at home because all of my straps are at the studio. So you can grab a belt and you'll notice that she turns her thumbs to point away from the body. That creates a nice opening across the front of the shoulders that we need because when all day long we're kind of on our little devices and curled forward. So go ahead and turn sideways back into your regular pose and then show a forward bend with that. Soften your knees. Yeah. So she's let her belly kind of come onto her thighs. You can use this and you've got this lovely stretch across the neck and shoulders. Lovely stretch across the low back. Okay, bring the hands up, body up, and I'll take that strap from you. All right, so I think one other thing that I want to show is I want to have you go ahead and step back into a lunge, a high lunge. So you'll get a nice high lunge position. Sometimes this pose doesn't feel good. Go ahead and model hands to hips, and then hands into cactus, and then arms extended. Right? So lots of variations for this posture, but sometimes this can feel really tiring. Let's say you're not energized or you're still new to practice. You can drop that back knee on the ground and still get the same energy in a pose. Okay? Lots of variations. And then go ahead and, yeah, that's it. So go ahead and step back into down dog, your own version of down dog. Just trying to balance her out. So we're good with the modifications, I think. Let me just check my little list. Yeah, I think that's good. All right, drop your knees. Yeah, take the other side. So you can't do it. You can't let a person, don't just stop on one side. Always do both sides. But that's it for our demonstration. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Namaste. Namaste. Thanks.